Meetings Act has been given by the board secretary in the following manner: posting written notice on the official school bulletin board at the administration building on September 25th, 2018, transmitted notice to the Courier Post and Philadelphia Inquirer on September 25th, 2018, and transmitted notice to the clerk of Cherry Hill Township on September 25th, 2018. Would everybody please rise for the pledge? Welcome to our special action meeting this evening. We'll start off with our first public comment. Roll call, sorry. Mrs. Sugars, roll call, please.
Mr. Goodwin? Mrs. Judge?
Here.
Mrs. Matlack?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel?
Here.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Here.
Mrs. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Tomlinson?
Here.
Dr. Wong?
Here.
Dr. Dickinson?
Here. Okay, now we'll have our first public comment period. Your comments must be regarding items on this evening's action agenda. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please note the green light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. The light will turn red when your 3 minutes are up.
My name is Jeff Podowitz. I live in 110 Kilburn Drive, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Did anyone ever look at the bond issue, the presentation for Maple Shade School District? Because it's very, very interesting. When they did their bond presentation, what Maple Shade did was they gave a lot more specifics than Cherry Hill. They gave specifics about the cost of all the items, what the school district would their percentage, what the state would do. I'm sorry, I can't get it up that fast. But for instance, they went down to main entrance, new secured entrance, and they gave a price. Interior doors hardware, they gave a price. I mean, they were really, really specific. In Cherry Hill, we first learned about the costs last week. It would have been nice if we had that information from the school district, but we didn't. They really got a lot of information, and we basically got nothing. We didn't even know the numbers until last week. That's important, because there's a last page here that says, elects to receive the state funds, determines to construct, and agrees to locally fund any excess costs. What Maple Shade allowed the public to do was look through the costs, see what the charges were, and then comment on it, I guess, because they had the information. We didn't. Any excess costs, cost overruns, 10% of our bonds, even if it's a 5% overrun, it's a lot of money. But none of this was divulged, and I hope moving forward, even if you pass this today, you're going to divulge the information that Maple Shade School District did. Two, 5 hours is really not a lot to vote. Maple Shade, I don't like that they gave their people 6, but they got 6 hours to vote. We get 5 on a couple of $100 million bond issue. Whether you can have that 2 days or 1 day, I'm not sure what's going on, but I guess my time is up. But I wish that you did what they did and gave us information a lot sooner.
Rick Short, 1002 Chelton Parkway. This is the first time I'm looking it over, but I already noticed that it looks like there's only 3 schools listed to get vestibules. Just says Hart, Stockton, and Rosa. I guess that would be my first question. Where's the other, I don't know, 8 or kind of tough to keep track of the numbers here, but that's on proposal number 1. So maybe you should consider correcting a typo, because I thought we were doing them to all the entrances. But the way it reads right here is security entrance at Hart, Stockton, Rosa. What about Cherry Hill East? What about Cherry Hill West? What about Carusi? What about Kingston? So maybe you ought to consider correcting the, or if you have any comment to it, because it sounds confusing. Thank you.
The reason those specific schools are listed is because it's new construction. All of the other schools will be getting vestibules. It's just not new construction. That's why those are listed separately.
The first bullet point there on page 5 says security upgrades, secure entrance, vestibules, and improvements throughout the district.
Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. So to be clear, Mrs. Sugars, for, I assume we're taping this tonight. So for the public's knowledge, this is different because it's brand new construction as it was presented last week at that presentation with the schematics. And the other ones are modifications and renewal of existing vestibules or entryways.
They're all new vestibules, but
True.
certain schools will have new construction. So for instance, Stockton, we will actually be building a new main office and vestibule in the front of the building, whereas the other schools, the vestibule will be done within the confines of the current footprint. Right.
So the schematics are still the same as they were last Tuesday. I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Then we'll move into our action agenda. And the only item we have this evening is on strategic planning, so I'll hand it off to Mrs. Matlack.
Thank you very much. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Item number 1, resolution of the Board of Education of the Township of Cherry Hill in the County of Camden, New Jersey, providing for the submission of 3 special ballot questions to the school district voters at a special school district election to be held on Tuesday, December 11th, 2018. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, are there any comments or questions? Mrs. Judge.
One of the questions that I had when I was looking over all this information, and I just would like, more than anything, clarification for the public. Since Mr. Middleton is here, explain the difference between asbestos abatement in questions 1, question 2, and question 3, because that was confusing for me looking at this over the weekend. So I just wanted a clarification for the public.
Sure. All the work activities are going to most likely encounter asbestos to one degree or another. So the asbestos in 1 will follow the projects in question 1. Asbestos for question 2 will follow the projects for question 2, and similarly for question 3. So the kind of outlier to that whole thing is the abatement that's going to take place at Carusi is kind of driving the ship, and all the projects are following on the abatement scope of work. So it'll be ceilings and HVAC will follow the asbestos abatement at Carusi, rather than if we're doing an HVAC replacement at the school, then we do the asbestos associated with where we'll encounter the asbestos just for the HVAC. Carusi's situation is different because we encounter it every place. So.
Mrs. Judge.
I just have a couple of other clarifying, not necessarily about asbestos, but I just want to state to the public to, because I'm on the Garden State Coalition of Schools, Freehold Regional School District is having a bond referendum today for approximately $39 million, and their voting time period for today only is 4 to 8 p.m. today. I just checked on Twitter. So that's just one thing. And then on this information that the district has posted, it has little check marks, and I would appreciate it that I could look at it online so I could enlarge it. The public will be able to. Yeah, thank you. That security vestibules, all the schools are checked that they will get a security vestibule except for Barkley, Payne, Woodcrest, and Malberg. That's because Barkley already has theirs. Payne and Woodcrest are in this year's budget, correct? In this year's budget. So that's just another clarifying thing. And then another question that popped into my head, just with the public comment tonight. There's a 5 or 10% overhead for unexpected costs in our bond referendum. What, for instance, what if we come in at the end of the day, question 1, question 2, question 3, under budget? What happens with the extra bond money that we have? What would happen to that?
So there's a couple things that we could do. We know that in question 3 is the paving piece, and we probably could use more towards paving. So there's other projects that we could allocate within the umbrella of what we have approved. We could allocate funds towards those projects. Or we could use it to pay back the debt, the bond debt.
So, Mr. Middleton, just another clarifying question regarding the toilets. So reading the information over the weekend, I think it was only the elementary schools that I thought. So could you explain what's actually going to happen with toilets at the secondary level?
Okay,
also?
so over the past probably 10 years, we've been doing toilet room upgrades throughout the district. So this is kind of the last round of toilet rooms that need to be done. So what appears to be missing, but really isn't, is the toilet rooms at Beck, Carusi, and Rosa. There are toilet rooms, but they're part of the plumbing budget line item. So I've adjusted it just so that it doesn't look like there's an obvious hole in it. The scope is in the project. The scope's indicated on the plans that are circulated to all the schools, and I think that Lynn has posted up on the website. So all the elementary schools will get toilet room upgrades, and all the middle schools will get toilet room upgrades. The high schools, their public toilet rooms have been completed for several years now. And in addition to that, the toilet rooms within locker rooms that are scheduled to be renovated at the middle schools and high schools will get toilet room work for the toilet rooms that are in the locker room proper as well. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tomlinson.
I had a quick question. In the questions they have, we have the bond issued amount and then the eligible cost amount. And there's, at least on the second one, there's a 9% difference. What is the difference between what the bond is being issued for and the final eligible cost, as it shows in the question?
So there's eligible costs, and then there's unfunded costs. So that's part of it. When we looked at what is eligible, if we look at things that are eligible versus things that are ineligible, this is from your packet last week. Of the $210 million, 190 million, just over 190 million, was actually eligible as far as the state is concerned. So we would receive essentially 40% of those eligible costs as funding from the state. But then we also have ineligible costs. We have about $5 million of ineligible costs. And ineligible costs for us is mainly paving, some site work, athletic improvements, auditorium improvements, some of the things that don't fit under the umbrella of educational or they consider necessary. And then we have unfunded costs. And the unfunded cost is basically wherever we have new construction. We have about $24 million of new construction in this project. They will only fund new construction at $143 per square foot. So of the $24 million that we are proposing, they are only funding about $9 million of it. So, and that is because of the $143 per square foot rule that has not changed since.
Oh,
ever.
it's been a statute for years. So that's where a lot of the a lot of folks, when they look at a building and say you're putting this much into it, why don't you just knock it down and build a new one? Well, first you have to pay to knock down the building. Second, if there's asbestos or other hazardous materials, you have to abate them. Then you had to build the new building, and the state's going to give you approximately, well, actually less than half of the cost is going to take to build that new building. So in the renovation scenario, they'll pretty much fund their share of the renovations that you have to do. So unless there's a compelling reason to knock down, scrape it off the face of the earth and start over, it's best financially to proceed with renovations.
Did I answer your question? Okay.
Dr. Wong.
Yeah, I have a question about the possible scenario that if we pass only question 1 and question 2, but one item listed in question 3 presents its pretty urgent need that we need to fix it, then any kind of flexibility, we can use the money, and of course, if we are able to, then what kind of procedure that we have to follow through, that that we have another I don't know, vote or another referendum or something. Yeah, thank you.
So if question 3 is not approved, we will not be able to use funding that we raise through the bonds for those projects. We would have to either have to go out again for referendum, or do it through capital reserve, or find some other way to fund those projects.
Mrs. Judge.
Two comments. One is because I'm on Garden State Coalition of Schools, Hillsborough Township is thinking about going out for a referendum next year for a high school, one building. They're thinking their referendum is going to be about $185 million. In their current high school, which I didn't ask, I don't know how old it is. It doesn't look horribly old to me. I've been up to Hillsborough for meetings twice, so I've driven by their high school. Their plan for that is to make it into a middle school and truly build a brand new high school. So $185 million for one high school. And I had a question, and it's slipped my mind, so give me a second, and I'll think about it.
Okay, well, does anybody else have a question or comment while Mrs. Judge is thinking? No? Did you? Okay.
Yeah, so I apologize. I am hopeful that numbers 1, 2, and 3 pass. Do we have a plan of action of what's first on the docket?
Security will be the first thing. That will be the first thing that we focus on. Hopefully, potentially being able to start some of that in the following summer. And then I guess roofs would be next.
Any other questions or comments? No. Thank you, Mr. Middleton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sugars. So now we will vote. Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes.
Mrs. Judge,
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino,
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Wong,
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We'll now have our second public comment period. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes for your remarks.
Rick Short, 1002 Chelton Parkway. Ladies and gentlemen, you just approved the worst bond ever possible for Cherry Hill Schools. Unfortunately, it was rushed. And the fact is on March 3rd, the presentation, we all know what happened. There were 7 architectural drawings missing. Some of the architectural drawings missing meant that we weren't where we needed to be. We finally got to see the architectural drawings just about a week ago. So that's a sign that we were pushing. And look, this thing was massive. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying you should have been a little more thorough. And then, of course, we know the problems with the consultant, the securities consultant that never looked at it. We can prove that on April 4th, 2018, the bond was submitted to the state. We can also prove that at the end of April, we hired a consultant to start work. We can also prove that in August, the final report was done. And we all know the problems with the security. So let's just review them. Of course, we have no glass, no protective films at Barclay, because that was our sample school. Of course, we don't have panic alarms, and that is the trend across the state. Of course, we don't have automatic locking doors like Washington Township. Of course, we don't have lobby guard like Lenape District does. Lenape District recently caught a sexual predator coming into the school. And we move forward with all the things that are missing at Barclay, of course. And the sad part is that our consultant who did the evaluation in 2016 made the same mistake that the district did. And these are little things. Barrier fences. Barrier fences around playground. Fences around electrical. All these little things are what's called layers of security. And then, of course, we can always add on and become better. We should have the film in the vestibules. We should also have films on the door. We should also have covers on the door, like Washington Township. So until we want to become the best, safest school in New Jersey, it's not going to happen. The bond, pass or fail, I'll still be back. I'll still be talking about it because I want to have the best secure school, and it can be done. It can be done all for $10 million. And we had numbers flying around that this cost $20 million. So, thank you. And the story continues.
My name is Jeff Potowitz. I live in Cherry Hill. The numbers we got last week said overall cost before state aid, $306,408,310.10. Cost overall, cost with state aid, $212,313,583. How much was the bond issue at Freehold Regional? 38 million? 39? Yeah, I think that when we're voting on something that's this large, I think you need a full day or you need more time. That's what I feel. You don't, you're equating it with a $38 million bond issue. If we had a $38 million bond issue, I would probably say that's fine, but this is huge. This is one of the biggest in the state. It's for years in the state of New Jersey. Freehold Regional School District is a very rich school district. So is Hillsborough, by the way. They're both well funded by the state, as far as I know. No, Freehold Regional is. You're wrong. I know Freehold Regional is. Not Freehold Borough, Freehold Regional. I know it's well funded. I believe that Hillsborough is too. So you just argued with me, and I know about funding. No. And for $212 million, this community deserves a lot more voting time.
Yoni Yaris, 422 Cheryl Boulevard. First, thank you to Dr. Meloche and Dr. Dickinson for their efforts on moving this meeting to this time so I could attend and others could make the effort to attend. Hopefully, going forward, they will make the effort to attend. I will be obviously supporting this bond. I do have concerns over how do we engage people like my parents' age that this district across, I'll say this is a statewide problem. We don't know what to do when you've got empty nesters. Cherry Hill just came out with the scary numbers in the master plan that the demographic is shipping. And when you look at the stats across the country, that's a scary shift for school districts. We're very fortunate that we no longer vote on school budgets, because that, to me, looking at that would be a failure for every school budget going forward, because that's scary. And now you're offering this in December. In terms of the voting time, early voting starts, I think, 45 days before the vote. That will be plenty of time. There's absentee ballots. It's gotten easier. It's no excuse. The absentee ballot, you have plenty of time to go out and vote if you can't get there that day. I just really hope you guys do an ample public campaign on this and start very fast, and also build Ms. Wilson's team. She can't do it alone, and she should not be the scapegoat if anything goes wrong. You need to do more on that across the entire board with district information. So I'm here to talk to you. This is what I do. Dr. Meloche knows that very well. So I will do whatever I can to help you guys get through this. So good luck.
Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. So let's go back 20 years when we did the last bond. We didn't have social media. We didn't have numbers thrown in and out. We had 600-page reports that we got to go through diligently. I would like to ask one. I am assuming, because I've attended several of these bond presentation meetings over the course of the last year, that we have not rushed into this. Okay, and this assumption that we just threw out these numbers and picked a few schools and we're doing this and that is wrong. So, last time it was save our schools to get this bond passed. And I was trying to find some new words. I wasn't coming up with anything really thoughtful or productive or eye-catching. But the one I focused on was shore up our schools, but that's not really good because it sounds like they're falling in mass, okay? But thanks to Yanni Yaris, God bless the youth of tomorrow, he suggested protect our future, and that's what we have to do here. We have to protect our future. We don't have $185 million. We don't have $185 million for a school. We just don't, okay? And it is hard. I can tell you that I attended the planning board meeting last night. There's a 365-page report that we were given exactly 11 days notice to go through, and some of us still haven't acquired a copy because we just found out about it last Sunday. And that's a report that the people who are so angry at this amount should also be looking at, because that's part of our town plan as well. So I, as always, will be supporting this bond because I still live here. I support the kids, the staff, and every community member that lives in the township of Cherry Hill, and that's what it's about for me, supporting my community. It is not fun to have my taxes raised, but I will do it. Because Monday I had my gas tax raised and nobody asked me if I cared if it was raised again. And last year's funding from the taxes that were raised by our gas tax did not go to starting any new bridges or roads. So at least we have a start. We have a start once again to try to fix our schools. So I thank you. I'm on board and I'm ready to go.
Anyone else? No? Dr. Meloche.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. First of all, I want to congratulate the board and thank the board for the vote tonight. You know, tonight's vote is the culmination of almost 2.5 years worth of formal work dedicated towards this project. But as some of the folks in the audience have spoken about, this is the formal discussion, or the actual discussions about an additional bond started right after the last one was passed. You know, there were back in 2004 and in 2005, and the district building committee that we talked about did the presentation in 2008 about the $200 million worth of work. This has been an ongoing discussion. Because of the diligent behind-the-scenes work that has gone on through the last 10 or 12 years. We've talked about the replacement of the boilers throughout the district. We've talked about the roof work that's been done, classroom upgrades and facilities work just throughout where we are. It's an ongoing responsibility that we have. We have a school district, 354 acres or so, 1.7 million square feet of schools. It's one of the biggest challenges I think that we have as the 12th largest district in the state is for folks that are here truly to be able to conceptualize how big we really are. What 11,000 plus kids and nearly 1,700 staff members plus visitors in the district looks like on a daily basis. This is an incredible step forward as we move forward from tonight. Beginning on October 3rd and up until December 11th, there'll be continuing discussions and information that will be shared. Tomorrow, sometime tomorrow afternoon, the new website will launch, which you'll be able to link through from the district website. And the language that we're using for the bond is Bond 2018, Building a Solid Future, is really where we are and where it's taking us. About a third of the way down on the web page, you'll be able to click on that button and it'll take you to the new page, which will list the individual projects for the schools. It'll go through, there's a spreadsheet that lists the different types of projects for each one of the schools. What's included in question 1, what's included in question 2, what's included in question 3. The board displays that folks have seen at back to school night at each one of our schools. You'll be able to see that visual. It's much easier to read. The folks in the tech department did a great job with the work that the folks at Bessica, that they provided for us. There's a tremendous amount of information that folks need to take a look at. One of the big challenges with the projects is you're not going to be able to find down to individual pieces necessarily what's going to be in each one of them to go through, right? There's too much minutia in some ways to be able to put that out. And also there's a reality that when some of these projects start, it's going to look different in 2019 and 2020 and 2021 when some of the projects are being initiated. What's available, what the technology looks like, and what we're able to do, right? So there's the big picture that's there, the money that's set aside with the estimates that we have, and then we will move forward in terms of where the projects are. Also post on there, and board members, you have this tonight, but it'll be posted on the website tomorrow. Some of the community meetings that we have scheduled between now and the vote on December 11th, including the key communicators meeting Mrs. Wilson has with the key communicators in the community. We have a number of meetings that are already scheduled. To folks that are in the community, we are willing to come out and speak to any group, whether it's small, whether it's large. It could be at a community center, it could be at a church, it could be at a synagogue, or come to somebody's home. If folks have questions, I'd much rather they ask us. I would much rather talk about what it actually is and what it actually means, right? There's a lot of conjecture, and people should be talking about it. I'm glad people are talking about it, but there's a lot of conjecture. If you want to know what the facts are and what the information, ask. I would much rather show you. I'd much rather tell you. I'd much rather sit down and go through the lists and explain to individuals or to small groups or large groups that this is what it actually is. So as I said, we'll be including community meetings. We'll do on Saturday morning. We'll do Sunday afternoon. We'll do midweek in the afternoon. We'll do the evening, leading us up to where it is. I'll be meeting with Zone PTA next week, but there's a tremendous amount of information. And there's time. There's actually more time between tonight and the vote than there was back when the referendum was approved on December 22nd of 1998, prior to the March 2nd vote of 1999, when it occurred the last time in Cherry Hill. This will make a significant difference in the district, and as the words say, it's building a solid future for all of us. Also on the website, there's a tax calculator. It's set up at the township average. Folks can put in, what their home is assessed at, and it'll tell you what the impact is for question 1, for question 2, and for question 3, the overall that goes through. All right? So, folks that are out there, if you're here in the audience, you're watching on the recording, we'd like to come out and see you, again, in a community space, in your homes, wherever it is.
I make a motion to go into closed session for legal matters. We will not be coming back into public session nor voting or taking action on anything discussed. Is there a second? Mrs. Judge. All in favor? Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out. Please do take some time to review the new data that you have access to now. And as Dr. Malash said, if you have questions, please ask. Have a good night.